right, so I'm predicting some major cold email changes in 2026 that are really going to separate people who understand infrastructure and setups and proper configuration from everyone else that's going to unfortunately end up in the spam folder. So if you're not prepared, you really could see your reply rates drop from 3 to 5% or more down to 1% or even less. Now, I've been sending millions of cold emails monthly for 5+ years at this point. And based on the pattern of changes that we've been seeing across our agency at Beanstalk and the scaled mail business, I think we have a pretty good idea of what's coming based on what's been happening already. So here's just a few things that you want to be aware of as we roll into 2026. The first is you want to really focus on preserving your primary domain health. If you tank that domain reputation, you can sometimes recover, but it's just incredibly difficult, painstaking, and generally a huge pain in the ass. Now, once that domain's flagged and bringing it back becomes so tedious, in many cases, the better option for people is just to change their website or change their name, which for a lot of people I know is a non-starter. So the scenario is something like sales team sends cold email from companyname.com. Now Gmail sees high volume, low engagement, right? They're blasting stuff out with a mail merge or something like that. They flag the domain, and then very quickly after, your CFO's emails to investors start landing in spam, or your sales team's follow-ups start landing in spam. And unfortunately, Google and Microsoft, they're not going to distinguish between cold email and business email. It just sees the domain and that domain reputation. And once it gets contaminated, it's really going to impact everybody at the organization that's sending email externally. So the solution is really to use dedicated cold email domains from day one if you're ever sending to external recipients that haven't asked to necessarily hear from you. They've got to be completely separate from your business domain, because once you get flagged, it's a painful road back. Number two is that the pattern detection we're seeing is getting smarter and smarter. Now, for years, ESPs looked for basic patterns, right? Maybe the same subject line to 1,000 people, or same send times with big volume spikes, same IP address. But now what we're seeing is that their AI is detecting semantic patterns. So the writing style, the sentence structure, specific words that are recurring in emails that are hitting their network within a frame of time, even how you personalize. Now, if you're using consistent templates or you're having AI write a generic cold email for every prospect, their AI is getting better and better at seeing that all of the emails have the same underlying structure, even if some individual words are different. So the solution we've come up with at my agency is what we call constrained AI. Instead of asking AI to write an entire email, we'll just ask it to write one sentence about company's specific challenge, AI generated, based on a specific data point that might be web scraped or AI generated itself. And we're kind of using the structure to personalize the copy Mad Lib style, so that there's a lot of variation between the different emails, but there's still a human with their hand on the steering wheel as far as what we actually end up with. So you create a lot of variation where it matters, but you're also forcing AI to be more creative, push it away from the generic slop that is going to get poor engagement from recipients, and what AI generally wants to do, which just snap back to the most boring generalized version of that text. Now, my third prediction is really just volume limits are shrinking. So safe volume limits have been shrinking for a couple of years, and it just seems like they're getting more and more sensitive to sending patterns. So you used to be able to send 40, 50 cold emails per day, plus warmups. Now the safe limits are a lot tighter. I recommend for Google Workspace and Microsoft boxes, something like 22 cold emails per day maximum. Now that's assuming that you've already ramped up to that point. I wouldn't start there. I'd probably start at 10 cold emails a day and then ramp up to 22. And then if you're on the scaled mail configuration with 25 Microsoft inboxes per domain, you want to be at 10 cold emails per day maximum. Now that's cold emails. You've got to add your warm-ups on top. And again, we always maintain a 2-to-1 ratio, so 2 warm-ups for every cold email that we're sending. But the implication is, hey, if you want to send 500 cold emails a day, you need 23-ish inboxes. 1,000 a day, you need 45 plus inboxes. So the days of setting up 10 inboxes that each send 50 cold emails each are generally over. If you do it, they're just going to get flagged really fast, and you're going to end up having to cycle through a lot of infrastructure. So some things to think about as we're rolling into 2026. You've got to have that multi-domain infrastructure with dedicated cold email domains from day one. They should be completely separate from your primary domain if they're being used to send cold email. And make sure once you set those up that you've always got that 2-to-1 warm-up ratio in place. 2 warm-up emails to every cold email. Now, obviously there's a lot there. If this sounds too complex and annoying, it's why we built Scaled Mail. We'll handle the DNS configuration, the multi-domain setup, ongoing warm-up automatically. So when Google and Microsoft tighten their enforcement, our clients are going to be prepared. We're already going to have an action plan in place. The other thing you want to think about as we roll into 2026 is going to be that constrained AI approach. Don't ask AI to write an entire email for you. It's going to either get pattern matched or it's just going to be horrible and you're going to get terrible results. And then you're going to start going to spam based on that engagement rate being so low. So find ways to insert personalized snippets, I would call it, in your emails, and then export those as custom variables from Clay, for example, and go into your sequencer and basically assemble these emails that in large part are a template, but have enough variation with all of those different AI generated snippets that they end up being meaningfully different from each other. Now you can use Clay to automate all this. So import the list, enrich with LinkedIn data, scrape whatever websites you need, generate those personalized snippets. And then this, takes seconds per prospect instead of 30 minutes to do it manually. You're going to get a lot of variation where it matters, but you're going to keep your value prop and your messaging consistent. Now, before you send, make sure you validate every list with something like Lead Magic. You want to target a less than 2% bounce rate, cost pennies per 1,000 emails, and you want to compare that obviously to the cost of losing inboxes and domains that you've spent 2 to 4 weeks warming up. And then the third thing is just really calculate your infrastructure needs. So with these volume limits shrinking, you need to do the math. Whether you're using Google Workspace accounts or Microsoft accounts or SMTP, make sure you have more than enough infrastructure for the cold sending you need, because you do not want to necessarily max out your capacity. It's going to risk flagging the infrastructure, and you don't want to be overly aggressive. It's much better to have double the inboxes or 1.5x the inboxes you need and send at a mid-range amount versus trying to max these out and send 30 full emails a day from an inbox. It's a recipe for having to replace your infrastructure every 45 days. So just a couple of predictions based on years in the industry and the trends we're seeing in scaled mail. I could be wrong on the timing or the severity of some of these, but the overall direction is pretty clear. So if you prepare now, you're going to be ahead of 90% of people doing cold email. If you want help with infrastructure without spending hours on domains or DNS, check out Scaled Mail. We'll handle all of that configuration and monitoring for you so you can focus on the stuff that matters, like targeting, messaging, in your lists. Our clients are still seeing consistent 2 to 4% reply rates, if not higher, with high positive reply rates. So it's still possible to send cold email and get great results, but you've got to keep your eyes out for some of these issues.